Coming up on OTH, Raymond and I go over patch 12.15, a little bit of news, and then we cover the latest week of LCS. We hope you enjoyed this episode of On the Hunt. Welcome, everybody, to episode 63 of On the Hunt, a League of Legends podcast. I'm your co-host, Chris, aka the business professional, because I got given a work computer for work, man.
Ooh.
So now I don't have to use my own personal one anymore and have some
Nice.
sussy files on it that I didn't want to download in the first place. No, I'm just kidding.
Now you can play Lost Ark during the day, and they won't be able to like tell that it's on the same computer that you do your real work.
Exactly. Actually, you know what, dude? I've been wanting to try out like GeForce Now, which lets you do that. It lets you like, I guess, stream games instead of having to like process it locally.
Mm-hmm.
But that shit is expensive. It's like $20 a month or something like that. So
Is it really? I feel like you can do
yeah.
that stuff on. You can do that with Steam games, like for free, if you have multiple computers with your Steam account like that. I don't know if it's every
Might have to
Steam
look that
game,
up.
like Lost Ark I know is on Steam, but that might be a little different. But you can definitely do it with like random. I've done it with like random little like flashy games, kind of.
Yeah, I tried it. I played a game on my Mac once. That was like a storytelling kind of game. Like, yeah, interactive story kind of game.
Mm-hmm.
So that was like kind of cool and not very graphically intensive. And I sometimes I wish I could do it more. And then back when I played Final Fantasy 14, I kind of wanted to try it there as well. But like with that game, they make you buy another license for the Mac for that game. So it would cost me like another like $40 or whatever. And I was like, no,
That's
thank you.
crazy, yeah.
Yeah, that's how they gouge you for the money on top of the subscription. But I still think about that game, so I guess joke's on me. Did I introduce you yet? Anyways, here's Raymond. Hello, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing good, dude. Just yeah, hanging out, doing my thing. I finally beat the main story of Tiny Tina's this week, so I've completed a real game, like another game, not League of Legends. Actually finished it, you know.
I think that constitutes you as a gamer, officially.
True. Yeah, I've never done that before, so now I'm a real gamer.
Yeah, for a long time, I didn't consider myself a real gamer because I only played League. So I don't know, like,
I mean, I
am
played
a gamer?
games before League, so like
True.
I had the
But during
ancient
the
gamer
time span of
genes.
like, yeah, between 2011 and 2019, I was not a gamer. But I happened to play one game.
True.
And that's the one game that we love, ain't it right, fellas?
True.
That's why we're joined here on this lovely day to discuss all things League of Legends. And now let's get right into the topics, my good sir.
Alrighty. Bring it on.
Let's start it off with patch 12.15, which we already did a preview of last week. So there's not much to talk about other than we still have a lot of the champion buffs that are now finalized and adjustments. So there's 6 champions getting nerfed and 10 champions getting buffed. And then there's a couple of changes to Divine Sunderer, Scimitar, Silvermere Dawn, and First Strike that we had covered in the preview last week. So, I know that you had raised up some points about Akali and Gwen, and I was looking at Kennen and Leona last time. I'm looking at some of these Lee Sin buffs as well that I don't remember all of these being here, but a lot of the energy costs for his stuff are going down for all of his main skills. I feel like that's not an insignificant kind of thing.
Yeah, that's kind of true. I think some of this though, especially for like a champ like Lee Sin, is like I don't think it's gonna change how he plays a lot. Like it'll be like a placebo buff of like the people who want to pick Lee are now gonna be like, guys, he got buffed this patch, and then pick him and like use that as an excuse, and we'll see
Yeah,
we'll see first pick Lee Sin because he got buffed and he'll still like do exactly the same thing.
that's true. I just can think of so many times when like I need to Q somebody, but I don't have energy, and I'm trying to stay in range of Q, and then when I get the energy, then I'm gonna whiff it by that point. So
Yeah, that's true. Maybe it'll be a bigger deal, but I wonder. This is one of those that I wonder like how much it actually is going to be. Like it'll change his win rate or anything, or if it just is like kind of a feels nice.
yeah. And then another thing that I see here is something for Zed, where the range for him, his shadows mimicking his skills that he has, they're removing the leash limit on it. So again, I don't know how much this matters, but it feels like a fun thing for them to do. Because like sometimes when like you are back to your original shadow, you can still like snipe people with your Q like unexpectedly. So
Yeah, I guess that's probably like the most likely use case, right? It's like you ulti someone, they like try to dash away, and then you W to chase after them, and then you like R back and can hit another Q after your ulti pops or something. Like that's
yeah.
yeah. Because I was thinking otherwise, like what do you do? Like you W, you probably like W in and then R, and like that doesn't get you so far away unless they, you know, like Zoe blink and then flash back or something. Like there'd have to be a lot to cover like 2,000 range of distance.
Mm-hmm. So I also think that that one is it. I mean, it's pretty niche, just like the Lee Sin one. But I could see, the use case for it.
Yeah,
But
that's not fair, or that's pretty fair, I think.
yeah, other than that, kind of the same stuff that we had raised last week. Was there anything that you wanted to recover from changes in the champions?
I don't think anything super crazy here. I've seen a lot of people talk about Shen like getting these buffs, and I guess Shen's at like sitting at like a 52% win rate and like solo queue or whatever, and they're
How
buffing
could
Shen.
they?
Like why? Like, but it's also
Riot
like
leaves it.
yeah, it's like a solid like 10 energy that you get extra like on your E, which is maybe not that crazy also. Um, but like it is kind of like it feels a little bit like from that perspective that they just were buffing every other energy user and thought, well, we can't just not buff Shen then, right? Like
Oh, that's a good
that's
point. Yeah, a
rude.
lot of the champions getting buffed are they use energy. That's a good point.
Yeah, I think they made a point that it's like some stuff about durability patch makes fights last longer, means energy people lose energy more consistently, so you should just have be able to use your cooldowns more. But I don't know. I don't know how much I don't play any of these champs, so I can't say that that's like a big deal now
Hmm.
versus what it was before.
For sure, for sure. Any last thoughts on champions, items?
I don't know. The items, I don't know. I think the first strike thing is probably still like an interesting nerf. It's still just it's one bonus true damage off, but that changes how much gold you generate too. We'll see about that. I don't know. They changed. I feel like they made these changes to Singed and Thresh, and I put them together because I feel like it's both kind of support buffs. Thinking we've seen some Singed like against like Callista or Yumi lanes because he's kind of good against those lanes sometimes. But they did nerf like the Predator interaction. But just having a little bit more utility with your passive move speed and uh, like durability of your R might mean we see more cinch support. Smile. Um, the Thresh stuff is like kind of one of those where it's a nice buff, like a decent buff, but not enough that I think we'll suddenly see a bunch of Thresh now.
Yeah, who was it that pulled out like Singe support pretty recently?
I think
Was it a Korean player?
I think T1 Kyria has been like a cinch support, you know, connoisseur and has made other people play it because Kyria is like too good and too cool.
Mm-hmm.
Um, maybe there is somebody else. Maybe it's the hens too. I know that there's some like meme for I forget what Korean ADC, but like whoever it was terrorized this Korean ADC on Singe, and now like it's been picked against him, and they have mic checks where he's just like screaming incoherently, like during champ select, like "No, Singe, Singe!" So it can work. It can definitely work.
Yeah, one way or another. And then also included in this patch, we talked about this a little bit before the show, but RP and TFT coin prices are going up in most Riot regions across the world.
Yeah, it
Back in
includes
my day,
NA.
$10 could buy you like two skins. Now you'd be lucky to afford like one 1350 skin, if anything.
Yeah, your uncle could send you to the corner store with a nickel, and you could buy two Jinx skins now
Yeah, I could buy a
and a
jawbreaker.
chocolate bar. Yeah. Yeah, I know. I feel like this is the first time where these changes have happened, and it's actually that I can remember where they've actually changed like NA prices for it. Seems like it's always like an adjustment because of like some like the EU comparison to the dollar or like different regional currencies, but this time it's inflation is real and it's hitting NA.
It is real. Lastly, I'd like to cover some new skins coming out during the duration of this patch. We're going to be having Monster Tamer Lulu, Monster Tamer Veigar, and Zapmaw, or Chromas for Zapmaw.
I think it's
It
both.
looks like.
I think it's both.
I see. I see. I like the Lulu one. I would. I advocate for any Lulu skin. Although her wand kind of looks like it just looks like a plug. Like it should go into an outlet.
Yeah, and instead it goes into Kog'Maw's asshole. Sorry, Zapma's asshole.
Probably, yeah. I could see that. And then Veigar, he's a little punk rock for me. I wouldn't use this skin. I'm more of a battle boss connoisseur, but to each their own.
Yeah,
Actually, it looks pretty cool. I changed my mind. Some of the combos are
came
pretty
around.
cool.
I
Yeah.
kind of feel like I don't know, these skins are a little weird to me. Just like I think I like that they have like this Lulu Kog'Maw like combo just cuz like Lulu Kog'Maw is a lane, but I feel like usually they don't have like kind of dedicated combos for this that are like like game meta stuff and not like lore dependent, you know?
Right, right.
Um
That'd be
but
funny if they made like a Lucian Nami pairing or something.
right, yeah. But I think, but I don't know what these like. I don't think I understand this theme really. Like, I feel like before it was, like it was like Tamer stuff, and like that one made a lot more sense. Or like, see, it just seemed like a very different vibe for like Lulu and Heimerdinger than it is for these guys. Or I guess they have a Dragon Tamer Lulu too, right? So maybe it is like totally different. These are just Pokemon skins. I don't know, dude. Doesn't make sense to me.
I don't know, dude, but did you know that the copyright for Mickey Mouse is going to expire soon?
Yeah, but that's happened before, and then Disney like stuffs big copyrights pockets so that they can get it back for longer.
Yeah, big copyright. They control all of it. All right, any last thoughts for patch 12.15?
Nah, nothing for me. Kind of a baby patch. We'll see. We'll see what comes
Mm-hmm.
next.
A wee little baby. Next up, we have an ability reveal for the new Udyr, which is getting a kind of a small rework, nothing too crazy. So he's going to be very familiar to the old Udyr that you know. But let's go ahead and read over all of his new ability descriptions and stuff like that.
Sounds good to me.
So passive, pretty similar. Udyr has 4 basic abilities instead of 3. They're considered stances, and you can switch between your stances. And when you recast the stance that you're currently in, you gain bonus effects, and this is called Awakening the Stance. And it puts your other stances on cooldown for a brief moment. And then each time that you do go into a stance or awaken it, then your next 2 attacks gain attack speed and refund Son of Awakens cooldown.
Yeah, so a little bit
Uh,
less of the like stance management, like the uptime thing. Now you can kind of be in whichever stance you want for longer, it seems now.
yeah. Next up, we have his Q, Wilding Claw. So, I mean, we're still going to call it like
Tiger stance.
bear, tiger, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Udyr gains a burst of attack speed, and his next 2 attacks deal bonus physical damage. So, very similar to how Tiger Stance was. But I think Tiger Stance dealt magic damage, unless I'm wrong about that.
I think it was physical. It was just damage over time.
You're right. And then if you awaken your Wilding Claw, then you gain even more attack speed, and your next 2 attacks unleash a chain lightning off the target, bouncing up to 6 times. Lightning can hit the same target multiple times, so you can deal a lot of damage to isolated people. I think that sounds kind of cool. I'd like to see it in action. What do you think? I wonder how it's gonna work off of like jungle creeps, especially.
Yeah, I mean it does seem pretty neat. Like it's I do like, and we'll I mean, as we go through the rest of these, uh it'll make more sense. But I do like how these are all like Freljordian god themed now instead of just like random animals. Like this is like the Volibear stuff, and it's Volibear Chain Lightning. So that part's cool to me. But yeah, I don't know like how different or uh like what kind of impact this skill has.
Mm-hmm. All right, next up we have his W, Iron Mantle. So when you cast it, or when you first enter this stance, you gain a shield, and your next two attacks restore health. So a little bit different from Turtle Stance, in that it's only 2 hits. And then when you awaken your W, you gain a bigger shield, your 2 attacks heal even more, and you restore a percentage of max HP over the next few seconds. So seems like pretty strong health restoration if you cast your W twice in a row.
hmm Yeah, not a lot there. That's just the standard shield one. This one feels like pretty similar as
Mm-hmm.
before.
Yeah, coming up next, we have his E, Blazing Stampede. Udyr gains a burst of movement speed when you cast it, and then your first attack against each target in this stance also stuns them. And it says it lunges a short distance. I kind of wonder how far that is.
I think
Um,
that technically that's what Bear Stance does already is like you just like you get pretty close and then he can do a little mini dash for the auto, but I don't think it's like a big attack range.
okay, yeah. And of course, this has a cooldown for every person that you touch. And then when you awaken your E, you gain even more movement speed and you briefly become immune to crowd control. So that part is a little interesting. I'd love to know more about the specifics of that part.
Yeah, definitely powerful. I think I like so far out of these abilities like how the awakening bonus for these spells like feels like a pretty important choice, like getting
Yeah,
invulnerability for a lot of champs has been like is obviously very powerful, like you think of Olaf, you think of like fuck like Gwen or like Xin Zhao, like any kind of like time that you can get crowd control immunity like is pretty nice. So like obviously for someone like Udyr who's always dealt with being kited forever, like that's pretty useful.
yeah. And then I just hope that like the visual for this across his base skin and also all his other skins, I hope that it's like very obvious that he has CC immunity at this time, or at least I suppose if you see that he's already in, bear stance, then be careful with your CC skills, I guess,
Yeah,
because
that's true.
he might be able to cancel force his way through you or something like that. And then lastly, we have his R, Wingborn Storm. So he temporarily summons a storm around him that slows and damages nearby units. His next 2 attacks cause the storm to pulse, dealing bonus magic damage. So very similar to Phoenix Stance before, how it does like the AoE damage around you and stuff like that. Although this one seems like pretty consistent damage.
Yeah,
And
definitely
then last,
less
oh,
bursty.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, and then lastly for the awakening portion of it, it unleashes the storm, allowing it to like detach from the champion and kind of chase people around, and deals additional damage with that as well, which is pretty cool. Seeing this preview clip of it happening, when you double cast the R, it can move pretty far.
Yeah, it's like it seems to me just like I mean this is just based off the clip, but it feels a lot like how you might have Victor ulti chase somebody. Um, but yeah, this is I feel like this ability is pretty cool. Like it's definitely more like consistent like AoE damage over time instead of I don't know with the current Udyr, live Udyr, it's a lot like you take Phoenix Stance because especially when you build tank, it kind of does like a lot of DPS. Like you have
Yeah,
initial burst, right? Like your plan is like you go and you bear slap, and then you switch to Phoenix and do like 400 damage like in one auto, and like that's cool. But this kind of fits the definitely fits the theme better of like I'm the tank trying to do like sunfire damage or in this case like frostfire damage, instead of like being a like burst DPS thing. If you wanted to do that, you can go the Q, the bear or the tiger stance stuff.
yeah, and I'm curious to know how strong the slow is as well on his just casting his R.
That's true, actually
Just
too.
because, yeah, that's just not part of his kit right now. So, adding that in, I wonder how strong of a slow it is. I wonder if it's like a 10% slow because it's kind of big as well. It's a pretty big circle around you that slows people.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point because that is like, I don't know, Udyr now is it's really this DC is all from Bear Stance, right? And now you have Bear Stance plus like extra sticking power from your R that like you can kind of hold people there until, you get other cooldowns up too. So pretty pretty impactful. And that's on the
Uh-huh.
basic part. You don't even need the awakened version.
Yeah. So that's it actually. No three-hit passive, no or anything like that. What do you think about these Udyr changes?
I think they seem pretty cool. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I'm someone who's like was a mouse enjoyer of his Udyr, and so I played a decent amount of Udyr like the last year or so. If I'm playing jungle, I don't play jungle that often, but
Right.
it's definitely seems like a different vibe for sure. Where it's less about I don't know, before like you'd build your job is really singular as current Udyr. It's like you run at them, you're stunning to engage kind of, and then it's like, can I do damage? I use Phoenix Stance. Can I not do damage? I'm like Phoenixing once, and then you use Turtle to shield and run away and wait until you can stun again. And like now, at least there's a little bit more choices in terms of like how you awaken stuff, and you have probably it's less about like, you get a bunch of attack speed, you can get your important procs off, and now it's like my important procs are either awakening things and like stance switching and just getting the powerful parts of stance switching off. So that's probably more interesting that you get like you should press your buttons often instead of just like do it once, get the burst for that stance, and then like you'll often find yourself staying in the same stance and only switching to keep your passive up or something. So I think these are pretty neat.
Yeah, I really like them as well. I think it's fair timing. Like I think Udyr's been out of the spotlight for a bit. I remember last year he was running rampant
True.
in the spring split, where it felt like every game involved Udyr banned or picked. And I was just sort of like thinking about when Aatrox was first getting his changes as well, and like he had just become popular right at that time. But like before that, nobody played Aatrox for years, and like or gave a flying poop about him. So I think that the changes come in at a good time. Um, his play rate must be down, and I think they're pretty cool. And he retains a lot of his identity still, as well as the must run up to you and hit you kind of person. So pretty cool. And I think that and also if they're upgrading all of his like kit and animations and stuff like that, that's a bonus because beforehand there for a long time like that Udyr sucked without the Spirit Guard skin.
True. Yeah. But at the same time, there's a certain amount of feel for like, yeah, I am running around with Black Belt Udyr. Like, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. This feels like it's definitely a good spot where I don't know, especially when you see him in pro play, the champ was very like kind of one dimensional, and you picked it because he was like, I mean, he was so good at what he did, but it was also like just like super consistent what he did. It wasn't anything flashy. It wasn't like a lot like crazy going on. It's Santorin's picking him and knows how to path and can farm and gank at the same time. And like boom, that's useful. But the champ itself, you weren't like, holy shit, this Udyr's doing nuts stuff. He's just like stunning people. So this feels like you can do a little bit more, or like at least feel like you have agency. You're still probably doing a similar like type of job, but there's more to it than just running and slapping.
Yeah, and I'm sure people are gonna have a lot of fun like exploring Q Max or R Max first. So I'm sure it'll be a lot of fun when it comes out.
True, 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 true.
All right, we just have a couple more things before we talk about our LCS battles of the week. Next up, we just have a little sad story of Huni retiring officially. We know that he's doing a little bit of coaching over there at TSM, but here's the official story that he will no longer be a player as of now.
Yeah, I think part of this too is that he's actually like no longer contracted to TSM as a coach either, from what I understood. So this is like he's seriously leaving like from TSM as an org right now. I don't know what his I don't think he said anything about what his plan is going forward, but it sounded like he said he's definitely staying in esports. So whether, I mean, he was on the desk already, like he did a pretty good job, like involved in that. Maybe he's just needs to sign a different contract to be a coach or something with TSM or with a different org. But maybe he's going to be a GM for a team that might be missing a GM.
Ooh, true. And what you're referring to there is that Golden Guardians recently released their head of person there as well. But one thing that I'm kind of thinking about it is, they did say that he's no longer contracted to TSM because of his wrist injuries and so forth. I'm pretty sure because of like the kind of things that you would need to become an LCS resident the way that he was. I'm thinking that like he has some sort of status in the United States where like he probably has to stay here because if he goes back, they will put him in the military, no doubt. And I
That's
think
true,
that there's a
yeah.
lot of people like who come to play in LCS, and then like when they get their residency here, they like at the LCS residency. But like typically at that point, it also happens to be like the point of their life that they would go to the military, and then also you can only like uh, delay it so much due to like life circumstances, and then so at some point you just have to do it. There's so many Korean pros from across all of esports history that like you just have to up and leave and go to the military at some point because of their I don't want to say forced, but like whatever the term is,
Right, mandatory.
mandatory service, yeah, enlistment. So I'm pretty sure that like he's gonna have to stay here, or that he will go to the military. Or if he wants to go to the military and then figure this stuff out after, that's cool too. Maybe you can come back and be a baller streamer like Rush.
True.
But then on top of that, like I'm something also needs to happen, or I'm thinking like something about a visa or a work visa, or maybe about maintaining your green card or something like that, is dependent on employment within the United States as well. So I'm within a certain time frame, like maybe he gets like 6 months to like think about it. But so I kind of wish I knew a little bit more about this stuff, but that's just what's on my mind when I see that he's no longer with TSM officially.
Yeah, it seems like I I guess I thought that he had a green card now, but maybe it is just that he's had like NA residency since he was grandfathered in or something. Because he was here pretty early on with Immortals and stuff, so that might be the case. Um, but I don't know. Yeah, you're right. I'm sure that I'm sure that he'll like make a decision here sooner or later, like sooner rather than later. It seems like he's the kind of guy that would be in high demand for stuff, and it seems weird that he would like leave or like lose his contract, whatever, at TSM, like without knowing kind of what he's doing next. Um,
Yeah.
because he was, I don't know, and otherwise he's like in the same boat unless Reggie got mad at him for coaching badly or something.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny. He's been on 5 or 6 LCS teams by now. Majority of his career has been in LCS. So we are losing a real one, I would say.
Yeah, true.
Dang. Sometimes it'd be like that. We're just losing the boomers slowly and surely.
Yeah, they're realizing that like maybe what they spent 14 hours a day doing as a 15-year-old was not exactly what they wanted to do for the rest of their life.
Hmm. I don't know. I feel like I still could do it. I don't know about them though.
He's also only 24, so he's not that
That's
old.
so wild. That's so crazy.
Yeah.
All right. Next thing that we have on the docket is a competitive ruling from Riot against former LCS Academy coach for TSM, Peter Zhang, who you may remember had a kind of a fallout with TSM Sword Art and a few other TSM members, and he was asking them for money to pay for his relatives' surgery and stuff like that, or operation, I believe the word was. And then he was also supposed to sell Sword Art's car, and had basically just asked a lot of people to borrow money. And there's a couple of more details, in this Riot investigation that they had did. But kind of long story short, officially Peter Zhang is banned from all Riot sanctioned competition, and as well as any teams or organizations involved in Riot stuff. for his unethical behavior towards current and former TSM players. And I think that in total, some of the um, story in this ruling also pertains to like how much money people still haven't been paid back and stuff like that. So I think if you're interested in like the saga of Peter Zhang, which kind of started a while ago, I feel like it's been 6 months or something.
Yeah, it was like the
Oh, it
beginning
says
of the split, right?
yeah, it says between January 18th and March. Um, so I think it kind of wraps up the whole thing, I guess. But he's scot free now. He just like he can never come back.
Yeah, scot-free being you literally no longer can work in the ecosystem that you had a job in forever.
Hmm. But I feel like that it nicely puts a bow tie on like the whole thing because it was just kind of like forgotten and like tied up with a couple of loose ends. But this puts an end to the case, I would say.
Yeah, that's true. Definitely there's not a lot here that ends up as like should they or should they not have, or like did we get the full story or anything. I feel like with this one especially it was like, yeah, that's like he did some stupid stuff, and like rightfully got canned for it from his job, but now like I mean this is what Riot should have done probably for given the amount of evidence and all the stuff that happened, it's like nice that this actually came through for them.
Agreed. All right, and then lastly, you were telling me beforehand about a bug with Hex Flash that made it disabled pretty recently around the world. In fact, can you tell us a little bit about this Hex Flash bug and what it was doing?
Yeah, apparently last week during an LCK game, there was a case where like there was some fight and the support with Hexflash just like he died in the fight and then instantly respawned as soon as he died while the fight was still going on. They paused the game and then I don't know if they chrono braked or what afterwards, but it came to the point where like after that game they disabled Hexflash and LCK, and then like that morning they disabled it in LEC for the week, and then like an hour or two later disabled it in LCS. So it just kind of got like apparently it's only a tournament realm bug, or at least that's what they said. Um, I'm inclined to believe them because otherwise they would have probably disabled the rune in live servers too, because that's a pretty big deal to just not die basically, or die and always be on the map. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I actually don't know if they got it fixed. I don't know that I've heard anything that they've got it fixed this week. But it was something to look out for this last weekend. I know they talked about it on broadcast about like the prevalence of Poppy or how that would work out with Hex Flash Bug, but we still saw a decent amount of Poppy even despite that. But yeah, that happened. So if you're wondering why some people weren't taking Hex Flash in the pros and all your pro builds that you saw in Blitz or whatever has it, then that's why.
There we go. Thank you for the catch up.
No problem, buddy.
Let's get into week 7 of the summer split of LCS, which I didn't realize this, but this is the weekend that the newest champion Neela is available for play, and so we saw her a couple of times throughout this weekend. Let's go through the standings really quick. We have a new team tied for first place. So up at first, we have both EG and 100 Thieves tied at 12-3. 100 Thieves has been on a really big hot streak lately. Next up, we have TL and CLG, both tied at 10-5. Next up, we have C9, who finally lost their hot streak, I would say, now at 8-7, suffering a 2-0 weekend, or 0-2 weekend, sorry.
Yeah.
Speaking of 0-2s, we have FlyQuest up next, now 7-8, over there in 6th place. Next up, we have TSM, 2 games behind them at 5-10.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And then at 8th and 9th place, we have Golden Guardians and Immortals, both at 4-11. So finally, Immortals is making some movement in the standings at week 7 of the LCS. And then lastly, we have Dignitas at 3-12, who were able to pick up a game this weekend. So, congrats. I feel like everybody's eaten good recently. But yeah, a few key results and matches took place this weekend. I kind of want to start with the C9 versus 100 Thieves. I believe that was a Saturday game, if I remember correctly.
I think looking at the schedule, that was the Sunday game.
Oh, Sunday game. You're right.
CLG C9 was the Saturday one that they lost.
And yeah, in either case, Cloud9 did lose both of their games this weekend. Let's start with the CLG one since that's chronological. Pretty great for CLG that they're able to maintain this top four status, and then technically with the 3 game weekend next week, they can still have a fighting chance for first in like a weird way, or maybe a tiebreaker scenario can put them, in contention for a summer playoff bye.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this game looked like this was kind of a stop from CLG, honestly. Like they had Palafox on the mid Yone with double enchanter bottom that they had pulled out, kind of in the earlier portion of the year, with Luger on a lot of the Seraphine. But man, Palafox got ahead and just like shit stomped this game. I think at some point here I'm trying to browse through the VOD, but I don't know. I guess he wasn't that strong. Contracts, I know they talked about got like huge. He had like a ton of kills early, was gapping Blabber in the jungle, but Palafox just was the one that ended up carrying the game just because he was Yone and had all the space around him that he could possibly want. They really did. I don't know. This just looked like maybe it was a comp difference, maybe it was early game just like jungle difference, but C9 got it kind of smacked around in this game.
Yeah, and that's actually the story of their next game as well. I feel like they got kind of smacked around in the 100 Thieves game. I was able to catch that one. And also something that happened in this game is that they started doing something really cool this weekend where they like in the middle of the game, they'll just start playing the comms of the players. And I remember that they did one for 100 Thieves around like kind of a dragon dance. And so I thought that was really cool, that they're going to start doing that. And I hope to see that a lot more. Um, just like, yeah, I like that it's a mix up from the usual of like just the casters talking forever, and then also getting a bit of perspective on like the game, because that's what I had really liked about Double Lift's co-stream when he had first started that, like last year, was that I felt like I was getting a different perspective on the game that like I couldn't have known about as a layman.
Yeah, that's pretty true. I think, I wondered for a while because I don't know. Back in the day, they did these kind of like listen-ins, maybe not live, but like in replays and stuff. It seemed like a lot more often. We got the famous Medios come shot in 7 quote out of that.
Yeah.
And there was like some curses that made it to broadcast because of the listen-ins this week. But nothing crazy. I think they definitely like have to figure out how to handle like the frequency. It seemed like a little not exactly what they'd want this week, but the I think one thing that you'd expect from listening in is that teams would like almost not want to do it, or maybe that was a pushback thing before because I don't know, you think you're gonna like release strats or something, but if you're not doing it during draft, I feel like most of the time this is just like interesting stuff to listen to for a viewer, over like it's real time strategy stuff, not like oh this is exactly how we planned and prepped, and we're going over page 7 of our season 12 secrets gg.docx thing, like yeah, I agree, a lot of it was really cool to listen to. um but yeah, some of it definitely had moments where it's like they're listening in and it's maybe the end of a fight, or they expect a fight to happen and then the fight doesn't happen and they're like, well, we're gonna listen in case it does. But otherwise it was like 20 seconds of, yeah, no, if this happens we're going in, and then it doesn't happen and they don't go in.
Yeah. I agree with you. I felt like they were like turning it on and then back off to the casters for like 30 seconds and then suddenly back into like the player comms all of a sudden again. So there probably could be like maybe a better mix of when they do it or how often or for how long. But I thought it was pretty cool. I'd like to see more of that for sure.
Agreed. I hope I think they're continuing. I think they should just, yeah, there's definitely fine tuning to be done.
Yeah. Another, if we want to keep talking about some teams, I think TL had another great weekend here, beating some people really close to them in the standings, as well as getting a victory over Evil Geniuses, which not a lot of people get to do. Let's talk a little bit about the Evil Geniuses game, because that one was a quickie, a 25 minutes of very one-sided game for Team Liquid, which it's like kind of goddamn it, because last week we were talking about how much of a
Right.
disappointment they were and stuff like that. So, I mean, here they are. Sometimes this is what peak TL could look like, I suppose, and we can show what their players are capable of. That they have really great veterans, that can turn it on, I guess. So this is what I'd like to see moving forward all of the time only though.
Yeah, I agree. I think this game was a pretty interesting. I don't know. To some degree, this was a like a top diff, a massive top diff, and probably Impact wanted to FF at like 8 minutes. I don't know. Blippo like counterpicked the set and had like just they had a really good play like at like level 3 to dive, and I think the EG just like really kind of misplayed the counter attack on the dive, and they ended up giving over a double kill, and from there it was like Impact could just like not fight Bwipo, they could dive him again, they just like really shut down Impact. They got Bwipo set super far ahead, and EG just kept making like play after play trying to shut him down, and it ended up in like double kills like on multiple occasions for Bwipo, and EG walks out with nothing. And it was just like, man, I don't know. Like sometimes that feels like a scrim game where they like actually would have FF'd at 15 and said like, okay, so like we fucked up early game, we can run the same draft and try it again next game, or maybe we ban the set, like. But they're not like you don't learn anything from that game other than yeah, the first 10 minutes was fucked up, huh, guys? Let's not do that again.
Yeah.
But I think I don't know. It was interesting. Like if you Bwipo has been streaming a little bit. I think his stream titles for the last like 3 weeks have all been like streaming. Day X of streaming until we get a 2-0 week, and so they finally got the 2-0 week this week. But the like just the some of the things that he's talked about in those streams is like Bob was very open about like, yeah, this is how we're like trying to approach the game, kind of conceptually. He's talked about it in interviews, and a lot of the problem with having a bunch of people that are like really well respected, really good at the game is sometimes you need someone to say like, guys, shut the fuck up. This is how we're gonna win, or like play around me. I'm the strong one, right? Like, when you usually like would take a committee approach, kind of, everybody's knows how to play the game, so you're saying like, oh yeah, what do you think, what do you think, what do you think, and you have to meld it together. But this feels like a pretty good example of them like finding somebody who is really strong, and then Bwipo saying, okay guys, play around me, we drop Herald, we fight on this, like we can rotate for Dragon and do all that stuff, and like because he was strong it worked out. But I think it's definitely one of those that it's easy to say like, oh yeah, they should just do this every time, but I also don't think you're always going to have such a commanding like topside lead off of a counter pick every game, just because teams won't let you do that.
Yeah, top diff.
Top diff. It is kind of funny to say that though, because it is against Impact. Like you might think most teams it's like, oh well, if you just don't want to get top diffed, who should I put top? And it might be Impact or someday, right? But Impact's the one who got top diff, so I don't know. Maybe it's doomed for the rest of the league.
You know what? Impact can have one game.
Didn't he have a game last week too? Maybe
Yeah, yeah,
actually, yeah.
yeah.
Maybe he can have a couple games. Maybe he's got a punch card that he's filling out. He's
Yeah,
gonna
for
cash it
free,
in
a free
for
sandwich.
yeah. He's gonna cash it in the playoffs. It'll be like, okay, Bwipo, I fed you enough times. Now you have to int.
They owe each other one. It's the top laner rule
I can believe it.
or the code. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other matches from this weekend? Those are some of the couple that I wanted to highlight, but a couple of other important matches also took place as well.
Let me see. Let me look back because I'm trying to think if I remember any of these games.
We had the Dignitas versus Immortals, where Dignitas was able to get their
Yeah,
win.
Dignitas finally gets something against Immortals. I feel like that one like is definitely a blower for Immortals, especially after people talked so much about like how like the last couple weeks they were finally playing okay, and it was just like they're playing against good teams, like, and they're getting shut down because of that, and then you're like, okay, well,
Yeah,
if you play that good, you go into the dig game, it should be easy fucking peasy, right? And then I don't know, they did, it was not easy fucking peasy. I think they got like pretty massively outdrafted in that game. It was just so hard for them to play, but it was yeah, definitely. I don't know, if you're on the Immortals hype train, that one derailed you a good bit.
yeah, and it's such a shame because they have pretty decent players as well, but just as a team, they haven't been doing well this split.
Yeah, something hasn't clicked, or they haven't been able to be consistent at the right times. There's a lot of like crutches holding up their 4 wins or something like that. But I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Other than that, the we kind of covered the big ones. CLG got their win over Fly. I think that's probably another thing to talk about is FlyQuest going 0-2 this week. Um, I mean, they matched up against TL and CLG, which are, two teams tied at third now, so good teams. But there was kind of a lot of like, I don't know, talk a couple weeks ago about how good FlyQuest could be, and now they're, consistently falling here, and they're the team that all the Golden Guardians and Immortals and TSM have the target on their back now, right? To maybe sneak into the top five, top six of playoffs. Over.
For sure. Anything else for week 7 of the LCS, or do you want to get into previewing the last week?
No, let's go into the last week. Let's talk about Super Week.
Super week, yeah. So 3 games this weekend, starting on Friday through Sunday. Let's take a look at any important matches that are taking place. I think Friday's games are a bit mismatched. It seems like a lot of like upper echelon versus lower people, other than the middle game of FlyQuest versus 100 Thieves. That one's kind of the middle of the pack, FlyQuest versus 100 Thieves, which, given the run that 100 Thieves is on at this time, I might have to give it to them, but I don't know if I want to count out FlyQuest just yet in terms of being able to take off games off the top teams.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if I know if 100 Thieves is 12-3, but I think there are definitely ways that they just lose random games. So
Yeah, that's another thing.
yeah, but at the same time, I think, like you said, this Saturday is like is basically all the pipe dream games, right? Like it's literally the bottom five versus the top five. Like every matchup is somewhere like somehow a group or picked from those two groups, right? So
Yeah,
like this is every team is thinking, that's in that bottom five. They're like, oh, if I just win this game, then the rest of the weekend is easy. It's like I just need one win off of somebody else, and I'll have exactly the wins I need to get into playoffs. Or you win this game and your other ones are like you need a 3-0 to control your destiny. If you're TSM and you beat CLG, then it's like, all right, now we just have to deal with the shitters, which is not really the shitters for TSM. It's a bad example, but it's like if any of these games that you win on Friday is like suddenly your outlook's like looks 100% better. And if you're the top five teams, I mean, they're all fighting for positioning in those top seeds for sure, but you're a little less like worried about it. So maybe there are teams that just will be focused on their games for the rest of the weekend. Maybe you have a stronger matchup than these ones, but and are dropping that, or you're already mentally checked out and you're like, yeah, we're top six. I don't need anything else. I'm going to playoffs. See you guys then. So upsets to look out for sure, but I don't expect them.
yeah. And actually, let's keep talking about 100 Thieves as well, because they're kind of the only team that doesn't have an easy weekend. EG has a couple of easy matchups, but not for 100 Thieves. So they're going up against FlyQuest, CLG, and TL next week. So I feel like it's a pretty big weekend for them to showcase off, how consistent of a team they are, what strengths can they play to, and really kind of giving us a preview of a lot of potential playoff matches as well for people they could be matching up against pretty early on.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, a lot of their win streak, right, so far has been, at least in the recent weeks, it's obviously been against weaker teams. It's just how the strength of schedule has worked out, right? So you go into this super week and you've got three like real top five matchups. I mean, you've proven you can beat EG. It's not like people don't think 100 Thieves can win these, but it's just a matter of like consistency, right? And that's what people always want out of 100 Thieves is, are they consistently beating the top teams? So if they do pull out a 3-0, and EG doesn't really have tough matchups in Super Week, but besides C9 maybe, but like a 3-0 could definitely mean 100 Thieves is, at number one, obviously, instead of uh, like just the second seed.
For sure. But it'd be really exciting if they make the first seed after having a pretty big weekend like this.
Yeah, definitely agree. Definitely agree.
Any other teams or matches that you want to highlight, maybe throughout Saturday or Sunday?
I don't know. I think the big people to look out for this weekend is got to be like the teams that are already, obviously the teams that are already tied. You got to, I think TL CLG matchups, like any of their matchups, are going to be the important ones, kind of when it comes to like how the standings are going to play out. Because if you don't, like, I don't know, they're the only ones that can make a play for top two, and obviously they're tied with each other. So you're interested in how those go. But I think a lot of it's going to have to come down. Like we have to see what happens Friday and Saturday, or like Friday before you can know what stuff is important Saturday and Sunday. Because a lot of these teams can just like, it's really easy to lock in our current standing somehow, and like it's really just maybe Dignitas sneaks into the eighth spot, maybe TSM sneaks into the five or sixth spot, but there's a lot of things that have to go one way or another before we can really start thinking about those.
Yeah, I would say that I think next weekend is going to be pretty pivotal for C9 and FlyQuest, determining whether they get that fifth and sixth seed, and are able to start off in the upper bracket, or whether they start in the lower bracket in the seventh or eighth place. But very unlikely for the seventh, eighth place part. But for sure they can't finish as first seed just because they don't have enough wins to do so, even if they went 3-0.
Yeah,
Um,
that's true.
and then Cloud9, they have a bit of a mixed weekend: Immortals, TSM, and then EG. So I wonder if those first two games are going to be a breeze for them, and then how the EG game is going to go as well.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. C9 is one of the ones that like this is a really important weekend for them, like you said, because there's potential that they drop to that lower bracket. They're also coming off of an O2, so you don't really know what their like mental state is, if they just are like, that was kind of a blower week, guys, or if they're like, shit, we like need to get our shit together for playoffs. And if especially if you I mean if you're smart, you're C9, you should be like really just prepping for IMT TSM, because if you win those games, they basically can't overtake you, right? And those are the easy ones. If you're worried about your C9 or your EG matchup, like that's something you should save for playoffs, right? Like I'm not going to show anything to EG on my last game of the split. I'm just like I'm writing that one off as a loss, and I'm saying I need to lock in those other two games against the bottom tier teams so I don't get blue shelled out of my comfy spot in the upper bracket.
Yeah, I feel like this is a lot of teams' chances. I think most of the teams in the upper bracket now are probably locked into it. I don't really see TSM or kind of breaking into the fifth or sixth place spot. Although it would be really crazy if they were able to dethrone FlyQuest for the sixth seed. Um, we'll see though.
Yeah, I think that's the spot that is like legitimately up for grabs, is the FlyQuest spot, just because they haven't. It seems like they've fallen off a little bit, but it does seem kind of unlikely overall. I mean, TSM got a win, right? But it was against what, Dignitas. I'm not crazy about a win over Dignitas, even if it was kind of a stomp. Um, but yeah, they need a lot to go their way, especially with their matchups against CLG and C9 this weekend.
Any last thoughts for the final week of summer for the LCS?
I don't think so. I think I'm just glad it's a super week, dude. I love having games to watch every day of the weekend.
For sure. All right, and that's going to be it for episode 63 of On the Hunt, a League of Legends podcast. I hope you all enjoyed it, and if you did, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on the service that you are listening to us on, if you haven't already. We appreciate it if you also give us a rating or hit the like button to show us some support. You can find us on YouTube as well as your podcast player of choice, from Apple Podcasts to Spotify and so forth. We'll see you all next week for another episode of On the Hunt.
Subscribe to the YouTube.
That's a good one. Yeah, we forgot to ask, is all.